Thank you, sir. And Anvita ma'am, before starting, I would just take a few minutes to wish a very happy Guru Purnima to all the esteemed academicians of the world who have joined with us. And ma'am, now the stage is all yours. You may proceed.
Thank you so much, everyone, and the entire family of Sunbeam Women's College, Varuna. My personal thanks and happy Guru Purnima, sir. Dr. Rajiv Singh, the principal of the college. Dr. Shalini Singh, that is the assistant administrator. Manisha ma'am, that is the academic head, and Dr. Nilanjana ma'am. Okay, so my best wishes to all of you and all the faculty members, those who are sitting. So this is a auspicious day. So I'm actually gratitude, that is a gratitude, and it's my pleasure that I'm here today sharing my experiences with you all, with all the faculty members, those who are there, and the ones who are soon going to be a part of this academic world. So shall I start? I need to share my screen.
Yes, ma'am, you can start.
Okay, thank you so much. And just tell me whether you can see it or not. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, your screen is visible.
Okay, 1 second. I just I'm not used to much of Zoom, so we are mostly compatible with Google Meet. Okay, yeah. So I just want to do the slide share. So,
ma'am, just
yeah, I'll just do it here. Then I will see. Is it visible or is it not?
No, it's not visible. Actually, you did stop sharing.
Okay. Okay, fine. Let me start with that only. So okay, even this mode is, I think, pretty much visible.
Ma'am,
see Ashish Gupta. Okay, yeah.
So just you can go for the slideshow. You can go for the slideshow and.
Okay, it's actually covered here. Okay now. Okay, fine. Okay.
Is it visible for you?
Yeah, no, it is visible. So there's an overlap. Okay, so today the topic that I'll be sharing with you is emerging trends in the interdisciplinary education, and this is one of the hot topic that we are hearing today every now and then because of the new education policy. So I decided to take up this topic because fortunately I had the privilege to be a part of such a system which was providing interdisciplinary education. So when I was in Mumbai, I landed up in an institution which had started providing interdisciplinary education. And the entire challenges that I had faced, I think somewhere I want to share with you all so that we get to know what was expected out of me and how slowly and slowly I was able to overcome all those challenges. Okay, so this is a quote by Leonardo da Vinci: principles for the development of a complete study of science, of art, study of complete, study of science is to study science as arts, study art as science, develop your senses, especially learn how to see, realize that everything is connecting to everything else. And this is the main soul of interdisciplinary teaching, which I realized that everything is connecting and they are involving with each other. They are having an integrated part actually in our life. So it is not correct to just study or teach a subject or a discipline in isolation. And we know Leonardo da Vinci. So he was known and famous for his art, but he had also contributed into engineering world, into anatomy. He was also a scientist. So this is what his idea of education is. Now, what are the approaches to learning? And this is where we are shifting. So one, I as a student was into a solo disciplinary education system. So I knew the clear-cut difference between mathematics. I knew the clear-cut difference between science, geography, history, and whatever I had studied. But when I was done with my education and for the first time I was into job, I was teaching to a student who were into a specialized course. So there are courses in BCom which were offering specialization in banking and insurance or financial markets or accounting and finance. So the degree that was given to them was BCom in financial markets, BCom in banking and insurance. And there I, as a finance faculty, was teaching into all the disciplines based on what is the requirement they will need from my discipline. So when I was going and talking to financial management students, financial market students, I was talking more about finance. I was talking more about the debt market, how the market is functioning. But when I was going to the banking and insurance, the same discipline I was presenting in a different form. What I was telling them, okay, what are the laws, and within those laws that applies to a bank, how the finances of a bank are affected. So I, being the same, from the same discipline, I was providing the knowledge to different students and classes based on their requirement, because they had chosen a specialized area. And this was type of a multidisciplinary part that I was taking up. So all the faculties from different disciplines were asked to teach the area which was required by the students to learn about the banking, to learn about the financial markets. So that was the multidisciplinary. And normally we have management, MBA programs, which is multidisciplinary. The student is learning about business. He needs the knowledge from all the disciplines, from mathematics, statistics, from finance, from accounting. And everybody is coming, all the disciplines are coming and teaching that student. So here the boundaries are maintained. So I'm teaching my area. I'm not asking the other area, and we are going and integrating and teaching. But this is what happens in interdisciplinary teaching. You can see here there is an overlap, and this is what the overlap is. So I have taught biology, I have taught chemistry. When I diffuse the boundaries, there is a new discipline that arises, that is biochemistry, which was at a point of time unexplored, and people are still learning more about it. So as a commerce faculty, when I entered, I was talking about finance. I had to learn about psychology, and the integration ultimately I had to explore was behavioral finance, because I cannot study finance in isolation. Ultimately, in real life, it is the people who are taking such decisions. So when I was learning only finance, there was one restriction that was given to me, that assuming all my investors are rational beings, but in reality they are not. They are influenced by greed. They have fear of investment. They have lack of knowledge. They have lack of awareness. They get influenced by their friends. So these all things are acting, and that area was unexplored. Now people are they have started learning behavioral finance. We are going into further research. We are trying to explore more of that area. And this is what interdisciplinary teaching is about. You are going and entering into the unexplored, and which is a combination of more than one discipline. And that is the area we can't leave as academicians. And this is not only for the researchers, even for the students. This type of learning is very important, because ultimately they are entering into a complex world where they are dealing with people. They have to deal with society. So only solo learning is not going to help them to overcome all the problems that they will be facing. And that is the entire idea of bringing interdisciplinary education under the new education policy. Then there's another level, that is transdisciplinary. Not right now, we are not much into transdisciplinary, but majority of the people here, they are pursuing PhDs or they have already done their PhD. As a PhD student, the entire journey goes from all these areas. So as a researcher, I thought I will be doing some research in finance, but ultimately I landed up in an area which was unexplored, which was a part of the society which was dealing with people, what the people were thinking, what are the problems they are facing in investment. So there all my discipline knowledge was utilized, but I was not discriminating that this is the utilization of mathematics I'll be doing, this is how statistics works. Here all the boundaries were not visible. I was using the knowledge of all my disciplines to find out the answer to the questions that I had raised as a researcher, to answer the problems. And that is where we are going, and we are transcending to a level which is for the society. So as a researcher, we ultimately, our outcome is somewhere for improving the society, for making the world to a better place to live in. And that's why after doing the research, we never get a degree of commerce. I never got a doctorate of commerce. I was given a doctorate of philosophy. And this was everybody. The entire cycle is complete because you have started, you are learning, you have focused down, you're focusing further into a particular problem, and then ultimately you're working for the society, something broader than what you have started with. And this is transdisciplinary. Okay, so ultimately the journey is starting. We are supporting the students. We are trying to enrich them into multidisciplinary part, asking them to integrate the different disciplines, inculcate the level of thinking they require to explore the unexplored. And this is what the education system now is expected to do. Even earlier it was expected to do, but somewhere we were not able to meet those objectives. Okay, so this is what I've already told you, that the education is for human development. That is the final outcome of the education, and that has never changed. Okay, so whether we are talking about monodisciplines or interdisciplinary, this is the final outcome. Interdisciplinary combining, already explained that it is combining of 2 or more disciplines, and then again making the students who will be able to connect, and ultimately our objective is achieved. And this is the somewhere the vision of our new education policy. Okay, so these are the challenges which now normally we talk about. The changes that has happened right now around us. We are dealing with screenagers. So now during the pandemic, this has increased. So even we have come and we have become screenagers. More of our time is spent in front of a screen. So we are dealing with screenagers. Our students are, I think, 80% of their study time is front of the screen. So the strategy has to be changed. The education has to be shifted. So it's not easy to tackle this type of students. We as students were sitting with all our books in our hand. Today students are sitting with laptops. Today they are sitting with the iPhones, and this is where the change has happened, a very visible change. Easy access to information. So when we are teaching in the class, or nowadays it is online where we don't see much of the student, what is happening? You ask a question and immediately what you're getting is an answer, maybe from Google. So what has changed? We still have to give them information, knowledge, but the information has to be presented in a different manner. So I think I remember once a question was asked related to what do you understand by interest? And one of the student wrote the literal meaning of that interest, which was not nowhere related to finance. It was not related to the area in which he was studying. Information is available to all the students, and that is what we agree to. It is readily available in their hands. As educators, as teachers, it is our duty to tell them which information is relevant for you, which source of information is relevant for us. Okay, so we are talking about an information age where students have access to information, but they don't know which information you are going to utilize on. So this is easy access to information. Now, how to use that information? Until unless we enter into this world, we cannot provide that information. Now, let me take example of the papers that are, the questions that are asked in IIMS. So once I happened to see a finance paper, the question was in a form of a case study. And behind that question paper, the formula for the calculations were given. Now, they were not telling which formula it is, but somewhere they were not asking the students to mug up the formula. So if you have read it, you were easily able to use it. You were able to realize, okay, this is the NPV formula, this is the IR formula, whatever the formula is there. But actually, the students were given a challenge. They were asked to think and then answer the case that was raised there, the problems that were raised in the paper. So we are shifting from rote learning to application of the knowledge. And until you don't teach your students which information is important for them, they will fail to apply it even after having access, free access to all the information. So we are into that age. Technology has become so much part of our life. We are talking about technology right now also we are utilizing the technology, and we are able to have a faculty development program through the screens. We had never imagined that happening so regularly. Okay. While traveling, you are using AI, you are using social media, you are interacting with the global world. Means there are no barriers to our world. That is a major change. I can interact with a person sitting in Japan. I can interact with a person sitting in US. They can interact with me. So the boundaries are removed, and that is a major change we are facing, and it is a very big challenge also. So here the use of technology is to be taught to the students to meet their objectives, to find a solution to their problems rather than misusing it. Okay, so nowadays if we talk about, when we'll be talking about new education policy, this is what they are talking about, giving value education again even in higher education system. So we are talking about the value systems, the ethics. Okay, and this has become very relevant today. There is a big gap between the industry requirements and the education system. So there were people had come for some campus selections, and during refreshments I happened to have a small talk with one of the recruitees, and I asked them that which stream do you prefer? Do you prefer science stream students, commerce, or maybe arts? They said for us undergraduate students are UG students. We are selecting them on the basis of their ability, capability, the communication skills. We are selecting them because whatever you have taught them is not going to be used in our company. We need to train them. And that was a big problem, because nowadays we are still talking about that the universities are having graduates who are unemployable. It's a big threat to our system. It's a big threat to our society. That gap has to be filled at the earliest. So this is the skill development programs that the government is trying to create here. They are trying to equip the students with important skills so that they can enter the world and they can do their job without needing much more of learning. So here we are talking about preparing the students for real life problems. This is what they are going to face, they are going to have when they step out into the world. And the learning is happening in our education system, starting from the primary, secondary, then your high school, 12th. So even higher education systems should be such that you are developing the required skills and you are making students capable enough to enter into a real life, face the problems, face the challenges, bring out the solutions, and not only get a job. Somewhere our responsibility is beyond that, to make this place a better world to live, to make the students of our universities and colleges good citizens. And that is the bigger, broader responsibility we have. And somewhere we are going to incorporate it with the requirements of today, and then only we will be having a very healthy system, education system, which we call for. Okay. So this is why, how, and why we need interdisciplinary teaching. Somewhere I answered that, but they are answered by a philosopher. Again, I'm saying the major part of our education system is to come up students with who can handle real life problems. One part is that they should be able to find a job, because not only job, they should be able to find a place in the society where they can earn their livelihood. So it's not always a job, but yes, they should be coming out with much of the skills and the knowledge so that they can contribute positively to our society. And another thing is that as a citizen themselves, they should be a part of a society who are happy people. So it's not that they should always be in stress. We are going to teach them the qualities of life where they can balance their work, they balance their family life, they can give time to their own hobbies. And this is why the entire things are coming together from all the disciplines. You can be creative, you can have knowledge. I can learn mathematics, I can learn music, and I might come up with an unexplored area, which is a combination of both. So that opportunity is given under the interdisciplinary teaching. We are talking about the methods. Now these techniques have changed, and I think you, under this FDP, you must have learned about many techniques. Most of the faculty members might be using it. So the techniques are changing. We are trying to build in an environment where the students' learning is becoming much healthier. So it is not only restricted to the books, it is going beyond the books to our system. You are going to analyze the things that is happening around us. So during this pandemic, we had so much of learning. We have talked about so many new things that we have learned, and the old aspects that we have again incorporated in our life. So we were talking about technology and learning the new technology to do your work. Simultaneously, for healthy living, we had started adopting yoga, Ayurvedic, and that has become the part of life. So when you're teaching, it is not only one part. You have to bring such activities around your students that it's beyond the classroom. So there are no backbenchers, there are no front benchers. Everybody is at the same platform. So even in online teaching, making the online teaching interactive has become a big challenge. So every time a group activity should be given to the students so that you are aware that they are participating in the class and they are bringing some new knowledge even on the online mode. And that is quite easy. We have access to free softwares, Google Forms, videos. These things has to be blended. The entire pedagogy has to be such that the student unconsciously is learning not only the discipline in which you are talking about, but beyond that. So they are using their minds, they are developing a cognitive thinking, and they are presenting it in the class. So it has to be two-way, even in online mode, which I believe. Okay. And then yes, contributing to the society. So the content of education here, as academicians, we have a bigger role to play. As an academician, especially in higher education, I cannot just be into giving the knowledge. That is a major part of my curriculum. I have to communicate the knowledge to the students. But simultaneously, as an education, I have also the responsibility to create new knowledge. So apart from teaching, I also have to contribute to the area by doing research, by carrying out few case studies, making it available to the students. So that is the content and enriching the content. Both the tasks are here on the students. Not on the students, sorry, as facilitators, as educators. Okay. Now the present structure, it has the problem. We were into the structure. Somewhere few institutions are struggling with this. Somewhere their students' education has overcome this. But we are still in the process of changing this system. So obviously promoting the rat race. Most of the time we still are talking about marks. We are not talking about the ability of the student, how well he can handle things. We are talking about the rat race, the marks. We are selecting the students on the basis of the marks. I think somewhere we fail to give an opportunity to bring up or to include into projects where the thinking skills are developed. And that is done in the form of internal assessment. So whenever we have internal assessment, especially in the interdisciplinary part, we always promote projects, the project work, ask the students to enter and go into the field work. The experience the students get in the field is entirely different. The overall growth is very important here. So you're promoting the rat race, which should not happen. You should promote knowledge development. We are going to promote the overall holistic development of the student so that he can relate things. So somewhere we don't have to promote the rat race. And this, as educators, we have the responsibility, but I think the entire responsibility should be taken up by the entire education system, which includes our universities, our colleges, even the government. Irrelevant to job market, obviously that is somewhere we always talk about, that there's lack of skill development. The government is trying to incorporate under the new education policy vocational programs. These vocational programs will help the students to develop the skills which they require. They are going to learn by doing. It's just like learning by doing. Your entire theme is about experiential learning. And if we are not giving an environment where the students can learn, it is going to be useless. For skill development, for growth of startups, for stand-ups, all the initiatives and Atmanirbhar part has been created by the government. Now, what is happening right now, what the government is actually doing, because of the problems in the present structure, an environment is created. So when I'm talking about startups, I very much know that not all startups will be excelling in the real world. So there are many startups who will be a failure. But why is the government doing it? India lacks the environment to come up with a new idea. So as students, we were always talk about job milegi, will you be able to clear your UPSC exam, PCS, and even today, mostly students are into this. The government is trying to create a culture where students can think out of this. Can I start something on my own? Can I start a new thing? And it is happening. Students have started, though the number is quite few, but yes, they have started. We are giving them funds, do something, even if it is not a success. So one of my students did start. So mostly in Mumbai, not only students who are coming from outside. Any problem? So there was a student and he tried to help those students who were trying to find out that can I help the other students to get TGs. Now the students there in Mumbai, obviously residence is a big problem. Students finding a PG and it's quite expensive. So what is happening? That student created a Facebook page. And the students who were supposed to join the college and were supposed to live in PGs, they gave their preferences, they gave their budget, they gave the type of habits they had. So what was their hygiene level that they had to scale? What is their sleeping pattern they had to scale? So somewhere he was helping them to find a place to live within the budget. And secondly, he was also helping them to find a roommate who is compatible to their habits. And that worked. The system not only worked in his college, it worked in other colleges as well. And ultimately he approached me and said, ma'am, I'm going to an angel investor. I want some funding from them. And he was going to give a presentation on his idea where he could have got the fund. Though he couldn't get it because obviously the funding was for a bigger scale of idea. But at least I was happy that the student did start something. And not only in Mumbai, even in Allahabad, in the university, I did find a student who had his own startup, and he, before the pandemic, was providing the facility of home delivery system. And it was for the entire of Allahabad. And it was a big challenge because covering the entire Allahabad for home delivery at that point of time was a big challenge. But at least he was doing something. He had the opportunity of creating an idea and bringing it into actual reality. And this is what we want our students to become. So we are missing innovation, we are missing creativity. It has to be developed in the class. So aim of students finally ultimately is to get a job or to have his own startup. So even for job, you have to give the required skills. And even if he wants to start his own idea or generate an idea or have a startup, even that environment is to be created. I asked my students, so what are the companies you remember of Indian companies do you remember, you recall? So they will say Tata, Birla, Ambani's, Reliance. And what are the US companies you remember? They'll say Google, Facebook, Apple. Now the major difference in the culture lies here. So what companies we remember in India, they are age-old companies, inherited. Somebody has started it long back. And when we're talking about the companies, the global companies, they are started by students. They were started by college students. And the idea has developed so much that they have become the big companies at present. So why not this is happening in India? Why don't we have more of Flipkarts today? And that is the culture, the environment the government is asking us to create. Obviously, again, landing up to the social part, we cannot miss. Ultimately, education has to be in such a way that it leads to the overall development of our society. So that is the most important part we cannot ignore. So these are the vision of interdisciplinary teaching. All the disciplines you can say is surrounding the environment of education. It is inculcating human values. This type of teaching has a vision which is beautiful. We are talking about human values, a place where truth, tolerance, peace exist. Sometimes the teacher says, is it my part? I am teaching the discipline. So whether it is my part that I should be talking about, again, the human value systems, not always. Why? Because they have already had that teaching in earlier classes. But one question I always ask them, don't we want our kids, don't we want our children to grow into a society which is having harmony, which is full of values, the ethics, and there's peace in that environment? So it is not only the responsibility as educators, but as parents, as a part of the society, the entire education system, and even the government, that we do create the value system which will be helpful for our future generation. And that is the need of the hour. That is something we must work on, be it the environment factors, be it the value factor. We need to create such a system. So there is nothing that we can escape. You might not be just giving weightage to it, but yes, in the heart, we do value these systems. So a little bit 5 minutes talk to your class, inculcating the values, will be beneficial enough for the students to recall and realize, no, the value system still exists. This is what, again, the vision of interdisciplinary approaches. So improving the mental efficiency of students. Now, I can't have it in a monodisciplinary system. So once I was talking to my system, and it was a case that I was discussing with my students. The case was purely financial case. So we were supposed to do some calculations where we had to give a decision whether the merger was beneficial for the company or not. So there was a company A acquiring B, and we had to answer the question whether this acquisition is going to be beneficial for A or not. The entire calculation, everything was talked, discussed. The final outcome was yes, the merger should happen. But when we further went into the case, deeper into that case study, we found that after 3-4 years, the merger turned out to be a big failure. And what was the part that was ignored during the finding out the feasibility of that merger? was the HR aspect, the HR issues that were ignored. So I, being in a finance class, cannot afford to ignore these HR issues. I need to tell to my students. Just imagine you are working in Sunbeam Women's College, and overnight the name of the college is changed to some Scottish British college. They are building their own rules, regulations. They are trying to train you in as per their vision. What will be your feeling as an employee? Somewhere we are developing a relationship with our employer. We believe in the values, and that's why we are teaching there. We are working for them. Overnight, this change is going to create dissatisfaction in me. And if the company ignores my satisfaction level here, it becomes very difficult for me to improve my efficiency or to contribute to the organization. And this was the part that was missed in that case. And ultimately, I cannot leave my students with the same question that after studying the financial feasibility, why did the merger fail? I had to talk about the HR issues. I had to talk about the people, what are their feelings when the mergers are happening, or when there is a new culture that is brought into a place, and how delicately these issues has to be tackled at the organizational level. So even though it was not a part of my discipline, the portion was very much relevant to be taught to the students. So here, that departmental, that compartmentalization, we have to ignore it, and giving new opportunities, and then helping the students to think critically more. So let them ask questions, let them raise questions, let them answer, find out the answer to the questions themselves. And this is what the vision of this interdisciplinary approach is. So here is the new education policy. I'll see how it is creating the interdisciplinary environment. The fragmentation is going to end. So we were into a system where after 12th, we were entering into a particular stream. Okay. The government is saying, no, it's not that you have to be into focus at the UG level. You have to decide your focus area. Let the students play around. Let them start selecting the areas which they want. Let them study yoga and mathematics. Let them study science and music. Let them study business and maybe physics. Why not? So we are giving them opportunity to create their own basket of disciplines that they are interested in. So that is the reality that is happening, that I can be having few credits of science or physics and few credits of music, of yoga, and even value means in the foundation courses, they are talking about a few disciplines which will be talking about the value systems, which will be talking about the philosophical part, your relevance in the society. You are also having NSS as a part of your regular curriculum, even NCC, and that is contributing to the society. Entering into interacting with the community. What is NSS? The interaction with the community. Why only few students should choose it? Why apart from the curriculum? It is so much part of your overall development, your overall growth as a citizen. So the entire value-based education is done through your foundation courses, which might be having a language, a literature, moral issues, ethics, we'll be talking about. So that will lead to lifelong learning. And I had already said that lifelong learning, not only to be able to work, but to enjoy while working, to keep a part of your time for those activities which you enjoy. So that is the holistic development we are saying. It is not only earning money, earning livelihood, contribution to the society, but as an individual, I should be a happy person. I should be happy in whatever I'm doing it. And when I'm happy and the society is happy, just imagine the place we are going to build in the system. So that is what the holistic education, giving value to your health, giving value to the society, creating something new, innovating. That is what we are talking about here. Flexibility, multiple entries and exits. So now this is a big challenge for the institutions, as teachers also big challenge, but the new education policy is saying that after 1 year, you can give your students a certificate course. The student can go and start doing something on his own. He can start developing a new idea, maybe a startup, or he can go and join some other university. So after 1 year studying in a University of Allahabad, he can get a certificate and he can study the second year in Banaras in the university. And in the third year, maybe at Delhi University, there is no restriction as to when he can exit. So once he has done and cleared a part of his studies, he has the flexibility to approach to any other place. And this is what you're not restricting to. You're not restricting a student for 3-year complete education, then you will get a bachelor's degree. Here we are saying multiple entries and exist. After second year, you're giving a diploma course. After third year, a degree course. And if still you are interested into further exploring of knowledge, you want to enter into research, complete your 4 years of your graduation and 1 year of your post-graduation, and you can enter into the research area. So the entire system is in sync, and making this UG course a 4-year course is somewhere also integrating the Indian education system with the international systems. So many of the institutions abroad, they want 4 years of UG courses. So after doing your 4 years of UG course, you will be eligible if you want to move out of the country for your further education. Otherwise, normally at present in the system, what the students were doing, those who wanted to join, let's say, Cambridge University, they wanted 4 years. So the student was doing his UG for 3 years plus 1 year of PG. And then they were going and applying to other universities. So somewhere now our education system is also getting integrated with the international system. So again, they are talking about the integration. Okay. Prepare the student for world citizenship and knowledge without borders. So if you actually see, our responsibility is without borders. I can teach a student sitting in Mumbai, I can teach a student sitting in US. Same way for the students, the borders are disappearing. The physical restriction is not existent right now. So our structure has to be changed in that manner. Okay, these are my experiences, what I had faced. So now imagine that I had just finished my PhD. I submitted my thesis and I thought that, okay, it's very hot here. So let me go to Mumbai. Mumbai was having a nice weather at that time. I will go and I will have a relaxed time there in Mumbai because my brother was there. And I went to Mumbai, and after a week, I was into teaching. Okay, so that entire change from a student to a teacher, from North Indian to going to Maharashtra, being a part of this culture here, and then going and being in a different culture, that challenge was very big. So after my first 2 years of teaching into an unaided courses, and which I talked about was the multidisciplinary part, I landed up in a very good college of Mumbai. It is an internationally renowned college, okay, St. Xavier's College. And when I entered, I was very happy that I got a job, and this is an aided course, and I got a permanent job. And I was so happy. The first day I happened to meet my colleague. He was a chartered accountant teaching there. And then he started talking to me about our workload. So which papers I will be teaching, which papers he will be teaching, and he wrote something. So I stopped listening to him and I said, sir, you have written something which is wrong. He said, what? He said, I'm saying, why are you writing BA? It should be BCom. So he said, no, it's BA course. You're going to teach art students. I said, but I'm a faculty of commerce. How can I teach art students and what to teach? Then he explained me that the structure here is interdisciplinary. What is happening that art students can make a combination of art subject with commerce subjects. So commerce being from the humanities, social sciences was taken as a part And you can, the degree that was given after the completion was BA in Economics and Commerce. So we used to say BA in Ecocom. Few can opt economics with literature, BA in Ecolit. Into psychology, so they were studying economics and psychology. Those who wanted to go into deeper into economics, they were going for pure economics, which earlier was also provided. That was the first change I felt. Am I teaching to BA students? So that somewhere I had taken time to grasp that idea. Yes, art students can learn commerce. Then my first year class, so third year was pretty good. Few students, 40 students, easy to handle. Now, when they started with a new session, and that was the first year class, I entered the class and it had 90 students. And I'm very short-heighted. No? So to accommodate those 90 students, they had a special class, and the class was not having any raised platform where a teacher can stand. Other classes did have. So I was there standing short and 90 students. So first thing was like, I started I found that 50% of my class had taken commerce in the 11th and 12th, and 50 a bigger challenge. And a class of 90, had it been 40, I would have managed a class of 90. So again, I spoke to my head, because there the culture was pretty good, that you can always take up your problems with your head or even with the work. I started with the storytelling, and to get the attention, I started with the Nirma story, how the person, that Patel, no, some Patel, Harish Patel or somebody. So how he started, and he started selling caustic soda, and the Nirma, what was the pricing of Nirma. So all the aspects of commerce I started, and I was somewhere successful in attracting the attention of the students. But it was only for time being. Again, my 50% of the students who knew more were not much attentive, and the 50 students whom I wanted to teach, they were all puzzled and baffled. I started picking up them some techniques that I can revise. So taken good ideas, such good game plans, the entire lecture turned out to be activity-based learning. And it was not only learning on the part of the students, the learning was also on my part. I was also talking about learning the technology. At that time, I lacked the technology. Even today, I'm not very well versed with that. But yes, I did start learning technology. I started knowing about, okay, the students can interact at this level. In one of the projects, the student got an interview from an entrepreneur from the Facebook. So they were so much into technology that I also had a learning. So that entire diversity of 50% knowing more and had no idea, that problem, that challenge got solved. And it was not only a problem, we had more interactive and more energetic class. Now, the diversity was not only restricted to commerce and non-commerce students. I had two students who were visually challenged. And after 2-3 lectures, they both approached me and they asked me, ma'am, we are having certain problems in learning the subject. So then I started giving them resources, access to resources, so that they can listen and come to my class. And luckily, the college also had a certain a room where they could convert the entire book into digital book, and they can hear and they can come to the class. So I had to be more sensitive, and I had to be more particular as to there should not be a problem or hindrance in their learning. Then again, the diversity was not only restricted to this. I had one Korean student coming to my class. Now the problem with him was not understanding of the subject. The problem was catching my accent. So if I was into like free flow, I was telling something, a few things he missed. So again, he approached me and said, ma'am, I'm having problem. So then I was giving extra time, but as a faculty, I cannot every day give that much of time to one student. So I again spoke to my head, and she said that we have a buddy teaching system here. Means I picked a student from my class, the one who knew commerce and was very much enthusiastic, a disciplined student. And I asked them, you're going to help this Korean student. So you're going to be his buddy teacher. And believe me, this buddy teaching was so much working for the students. So it was like the same class, or maybe the seniors, they were helping the juniors in understanding the entire subject and maybe beyond that. So the helping was not only restricted to only the curriculum, even the students, a Korean student coming to India, he must be having more challenges than only the subject. So helping the student in all the challenges, and that the other student was doing. And not necessarily from my own class, it can be from any other discipline also. So the entire learning is not restricted to your books. The entire learning is not restricted. We are creating a environment where everybody is teaching each other. So I am also learning, you are also learning, and it is the holistic learning that is happening. It is the complete learning that is happening. So again, standing there, and what is the expectation of students? So being at one of the most, it had the students who scored very high. They were the genius of their batch. They were the toppers of the batch. Now somewhere standing in front of the class, I could make out, okay, this student has more IQ than me. Obviously the knowledge I had, and that is always the benefit with a teacher, that I have the knowledge and they want that knowledge. But yes, his IQ is more than mine. So I had to teach beyond the books. Why? Because his IQ is such, or he's a good student, he can read the book and understand the things. So what am I contributing to him as a teacher? Teaching beyond the books. Getting cases, getting documentaries. We had an entire section there where you can choose the documentaries, and today lovely documentaries are coming on different topics. So at that time it was about talking about subprime crisis. I had a documentary, they were talking about fans, they were talking about what actually happened at that time, and the entire learning was becoming very, very interesting. The students were raising questions. The students did bring, we could also show movies. So we were given 2 classrooms where you can have audio videos. So you can also play a movie which was related to the curriculum, and we can raise certain questions around it. So the understanding of the students was quite, I think, in a deeper level. So it was not only restricted to books. So at least I could retain those students in my class, and that is a big challenge. Then syllabus framing. Now the syllabus has to be very challenging. So you can't have a simple syllabus and then you can have the challenging part. Syllabus framing, again, for skill development, what we are talking about. Framing of the syllabus, and I was in this board of studies. I found that they have 2 student representatives sitting with us in the board of studies. And what were their roles as students? They were the students who were in the final year, or they were even the passed out students, those who have already cleared their UG. And these students were the meritorious students. So what input they were giving, they knew where the overlap between subjects was. So sometimes it happened that you are teaching the same thing in one area and the same is repeated in other area. So what they were telling, okay, these are the repetitions and can be avoided. Also helping us in telling us what is the need of the industry. So what is the expectation of the industry from the students, what skills they need to learn, and those skills were incorporated into the curriculum. So the syllabus was in itself a challenging, and framing the syllabus was a challenge, and it couldn't be done until unless you integrate with your other discipline faculty members and even the students, and that was the practice was happening there. Mentorship program. So again, going beyond academic teacher, we had a few students who came to me that, ma'am, you are my mentor. I said, what am I supposed to do being a mentor? There was nothing. It was just an interaction. Mostly the students were first year students. For the first time, they had stepped out from their houses. They were facing some psychological problems. They were facing some confusions, some little bit problems. So as a teacher, you were just interacting with them, talking to them, giving little bit solutions, what you can do. So if they are saying, ma'am, I'm feeling homesick, make friends, go out and go and for a movie. And this is what slowly and slowly you were helping the student in being part of that college. And the interaction was a lovely one. So initially I felt, okay, I'm wasting more time there. Why should I be a mentor? But the experience was so lovely being with those students that I started enjoying it. So these programs, and somewhere again, if I have a duty to make citizen good citizen who are good for the community, I have to also ensure that my students are not indulging into antisocial things. They are not into drugs. They are not into smoking. They are learning good things. They are not interacting with the bad elements of the society. So while interacting, I was also having some control as to what they were prone to and saving them from that environment and that world. Now again, cross faculty. So I was a cross faculty, being a faculty of commerce teaching to the art student, a very big challenge. So I can't teach three golden rules of accounting. There I had to talk about assets and liabilities and how the entries takes place. So my entire style of teaching changed there. But it was not only restricted to India. So they had cross faculty where the faculties were going under the faculty exchange programs, and we were also given the opportunity to teach in other institutions. So they had collaboration with other institutions. A few semesters, one semester, and their faculty will come and teach in my college. So that entire interdisciplinary approach can be felt here. So not only faculty exchange program, even the student exchange program. So one semester of our students was exchanged with another faculty, and their students were coming in our college and our students in their college. And the learning experience was very different. Even as faculties, though I missed the opportunity, I came here to. That was a lovely exercise that was being done. And the learning was more than what actually we do when we are stuck to a place. So the exchange programs. Now I had two students who were Japanese students, lovely students, means ideal students. I used to say you are ideal students, what I can imagine. Now, once they were done with the semester and they had written a very lovely note in their answer sheet also about my teaching and what they liked in me. Then they came, before leaving, they gifted me a book. And they said that before going back to Japan, we are planning to visit Varanasi, Gaya, and maybe Haridwar or something. So they had to see the real India before they left. And I was like somewhere shocked. Can you manage it on your own? Can you move from here to on your own? They said, yeah, fine with that. They were the ones, after every end of the college, they used to take a bus and go to Dharavi to get a develop an understanding as to how that slum works. Dharavi is an economy in itself. So I had never done that, but they were doing it. So somewhere they are also teaching. What is their outlook of education? It is not just teaching from the teacher. It is beyond that. Then assessment. The assessment has to be different. We can't just stick to 5 points and give them full marks, 4 points. So they had the flexibility they gave us in framing the question paper. So when I'm putting in so much effort, going beyond the books, finding out cases, making it relevant for them, talking about documentaries, I'm putting in so much of pain, for so much of time as a teacher. So the question paper cannot be strictly from the book. They gave us the opportunity to ask questions on the aspects that I had taken up in the class. So if I've taken a case study, I could ask a question with respect to the case of XYZ, what were the problems that the person faced? Or with respect to the project given to you in the class, what were your learning outcomes? So this is where I'm making my teaching relevant in assessment. So I'm asking something which I had taught beyond the books, and now also ensuring that it is asked in the class. And the moment you start doing it, you will see that the students are there in your class, because they cannot afford to lose your class, to leave your class, because you are assessing them on what they have learned in your activity. And somewhere this is how you retain your students in your class. If the question paper they know is coming directly from the book, then in that case, they will read the book. They are smart enough. They can write the answers. But no, the question paper has to be challenging. And there we have to analyze our question papers on the basis of Bloom's taxonomy, where you cannot just ask what, why. You were supposed to have application-based questions. You were supposed to give certain news-related items where a challenge, a problem was put before the students, and they were supposed to write an answer based on the understanding of the concept that I had given to them in the class. So the question paper framing, the assessment and the teaching goes hand in hand. We cannot have it segregated. So what I'm teaching, I have the full right to ask that. And yes, they never believed in a simple question paper. The college was very particular. So every time after framing a question paper, I had to analyze my paper and give them, okay, these were the percentage of application-based question I asked. These were the understanding-based questions. These were based on the concept. So every time, along with the question paper, my analysis of the question paper was taken. It was just to make sure that I'm not sticking to the traditional type. Now, they also had a practice, and that is the university practice of getting your paper moderated. So once you were finished correcting the papers of your class, a person from other college or university was coming, and they were just seeing that whatever the papers or corrections that has happened, they are done in a standardized way. So you can stick to lenient checking, you can stick to strict checking, but the standardization was there. So none of the student was like penalized for misconnections, and also that was the practice. The moderator came, she saw the paper, and she took the paper with herself, and she said, I'm going to show it to my principal, because this is the type of paper questions we should ask to our students. Every time you cannot ask something which that rote learning, I said, no, we have to change that rote learning system. We have to teach more in a holistic manner, and the assessment has to also be done in a way as to student have understood or not, whether he can apply what he has understood, learned or not. And based on that, the merit of the student should be happen. So this was my pattern. Okay. News analysis, I always had first 10-15 minutes of newspaper reading, and mostly I try to do it even today, because we are into commerce paper and we cannot ignore what is happening in the business world. So news analysis, discussion as to why RBI is bringing this monetary policy, what they did during the COVID time. Okay, why is the government bringing Atmanirbhar Bharat? What is stand up? So it's finance. It's more than what the expectation the student has to know about what is happening around him, the entire environment, what he is going to learn. So news analysis is one of the most important aspects, especially in a dynamic subject like commerce, which I always try to. Pre-instructional planning. Now, this was again a platform was given, and nowadays also a few people, a few management and the universities want that you are giving something to read on to your students. Now we had a platform initially, Moodle. So on Moodle, you can give small assessments, you can give small questions. Okay, you can upload your reading was required. Now, as a faculty, as a teacher, when I'm expected to do something like this, I'm expected to prepare my own video, upload it before taking a lecture. And then they were saying, okay, information you will give on the video, and we can take the discussion in the class. There's nothing, it's a good way of teaching. But as a faculty, I always said that if I'm putting in so much of effort and time in doing pre-instructional planning, and I'm giving a 50 minutes lecture or a 30 minutes lecture online so that the student can see and then come to my class. So can't it be treated as a class? So the UGC has their own workload. Pushing it into new type of teaching is requiring our more time. The integration should also happen for the academics and for the teachers also. So if I'm doing something online, that is very much part of my workload. If you integrate it, teachers will be inclined, they will be motivated to bring that blend in their style of teaching, because everybody has a workplace, that is the job, the profession, and they have their own personal life. A balance has to be created in between the both. Okay, so you cannot expect a teacher to extend or to go beyond her timings every time. Okay, there's a lot of effort in making a video. So if a video can be treated as a lecture and it can be a part of my workload, I will enjoy doing it. Okay, so somewhere the management should also understand that new pedagogy, new styles, new learning, yes, but somewhere you also should be very clear that it should also be given to the teachers in a blended manner, that they can actually devote time to their teaching and also to their family. So that has to be taken care of by the management. So obviously pre-instructional planning I was doing with my visually challenged students. I was doing with that this Korean student, and it works because somewhere your class is not going into monotony, and that is what is happening. Introduction to methodology to the student, it happens only when you are giving a problem to the student. So I asked my student, go and collect some data from the field, go and sell this item outside. So I'm not teaching directly marketing to them. What I'm doing, I'm giving them some maybe some project, or maybe I'm asking them to collect some data. I'm telling you, okay, the data has to be collected in this structured manner. Okay, mean these are the questions you will be asking. And then finally, whatever is your experience, you are going to write it. So I have given a methodology of how to take up the activity, how to take up my project. So in MBA, we do have internships, but apart from that, we also have a project report. The project report helps the students how well he can communicate his learning in his dissertation. The moment we have dissertation and the student is working on it, he's asking questions as to how to communicate, how to write it, how to use the software, how to find out the conclusion. And that is where we are helping. So it is not only the gaining of the knowledge, we are also helping the student in a particular methodology to conduct that entire project and to communicate it. So one of the activities we had was, especially for the students who were going into pure areas, means they were going to be the future researchers. So nothing was mandatory for them, but yes, we had a credit for those projects. And in one of the projects, the students were supposed to write a paper. Now the topic of the paper was given. So just imagine a UG student, and we are expecting a UG student to write a paper and much similar to a research paper. Now the students were given under each faculty member, and the students were given a topic. Let's say whatever the theories you have learned in economics and commerce, you have to apply it in the real world. So you have to find out what is happening around you, कौन सी theory को apply कर रहा है. So they were doing a little bit of literature survey. Then they were telling them how to write that. Then they were also finding out their outcomes, concluding the paper, writing the references. And then the paper were presented. So we used to take them to an entirely new area. Means we used to go to Khandala. So we had a villa there, and the college permitted us to take the students there. So it was a new environment, and we were conducting the seminar in an open area. no restrictions, no boundaries. The weather is always good there most of the time. And we were into academic discussion. They were coming out with new concept, and we were having a discussion as to actually it exists, what are the problems, what you have missed. Now, UG student getting an idea of how to conduct a research at that stage, especially in the final year. They are the ones who will be the future researcher, and they get an idea as to what will be expected out of them as a researcher. And they had a credit to it. So they were also getting a credit, and that was adding to their final CGPA. So the entire activity was taken in a very structured manner, and the students were the one who were talking about their dissertations, their research work to the companies who were coming to hire them. That was the discussion they were having with the corporate world. And that is where what attracted the corporate world to select those students, because they were not talking about what do you mean by marketing. That was not the question coming from the corporate also. What you studied when you went out in the field and you talk to the shopkeepers. That was the learning, and that always comes as a discussion. So this was the practice that was happening in that interdisciplinary environment. Feedback is very important. So whenever we are taking something new, ask that whether it was successful in meeting out the objective. So after every, I think, session, you yourselves are taking a feedback, whether it is working or not, whether we are contributing to your knowledge or not. It's not that you're just sitting there and you're not getting nothing. Then my activity goes waste. Then my time and effort becomes zero. Assessment. Then again, I go and based on my feedback, I self-assess what are the mistakes I made, and we do it. It's not that something it has to be taught. So after this session, might be doing my own self-assessment. Okay, I have to, these are my weakness, I have to work on these. So it's a regular continuous activity. Why only when we are into job it has to be inculcated amongst us? Why not in the student life they start assessing themselves? Let them do it. Let them make them clear that this ye can communicate yes whether the activity was effective or not. Let them assess your activity, and then let them communicate, okay, whether it was beneficial or not and how it could be improved. And students are, especially in higher education, they are the best people to give a feedback and also solution to it. So they will tell you, okay ma'am, we'll do it in this manner, this will be better for us. Team teaching. Now, team teaching is a very important part of your interdisciplinary. So we have team projects. So we always sometimes group students into team, and they are taking up an activity. So they are learning from amongst themselves. But in team teaching, what we do, we are collaborating with other disciplines, with other faculty members. So I might give more inputs about finance. I know there are certain HR issues, but I might lack the ability to communicate it to my students. So that communication might not be as good as an HR faculty. So what activities happen that you have just like a panel discussions we have. So you have all the faculty members from different disciplines. We raise a question or maybe a topic, and the discussion is happening from all the disciplines. So I was teaching organizational behavior, which is not, which was a little bit tough for me. So I taught them about the theories and everything. But then I had kept a lecture from one of my psychology professors. She came and she interacted with the students, and she talked about the group dynamics, which we were talking into the organization, but she talked about the group dynamics. So the interdisciplinary teaching is not coming only from one discipline or from one faculty. You have to also ensure that there is an environment where it is coming from all the disciplines, and the students can develop that cognitive thinking there. We can come out with a solution which is not coming only from one area, but from different areas. So when I'm teaching finance and I'm talking about profitability and the profitability ratios, I always tell them that in reality, don't always think about profitability. In reality, you have to think about social cost and social benefit. You have to talk about the project and the feasibility of the project on the basis of social cost benefit analysis. And this is how the government takes up their projects. I need to tell them, because I can't restrict them only to profits. Just imagine they are just thinking about profits. They're not thinking about society. I can't have such students. I can't give such knowledge. It has to extend where the thinking has to happen for about the students. And they do ask me, okay, yes, then why did this happen? Why did the government took that project? Why, even in this vaccination and all the questions that were raised were related to the social benefits. Everything I could answer when I had taught them the concept of social cost benefit analysis. So this is where the interdisciplinary teaching is inculcating amongst the student a higher level of thinking. So team teaching, and you can integrate with other colleagues and then create a debate. And obviously there's a learning in all directions. Students learn to disagree without hostility while debating on different topics. So this is the expectation of teaching. Okay. Now, once I was into a training program, I was being trained by mistake. The trainers, they gave us a solution to the question. They had to give us a question, a case, where we have to think about how a good portfolio can be constructed for that case. But finally, what happened that they had given us the solution. Now imagine that there is no problem in a case and you are asking and raising questions. You are asking the people, or we were the training, the participants, raise a question, improve his portfolio, iska debt में कितना proportion होना चाहिए, equity में कितना होना चाहिए, और कौन से instruments में होना चाहिए. And we were thinking like, yeah, ये तो perfect है, this is perfect, this is perfect. That is going in my mind. That exercise is going in my mind. Nobody in that class along with me could raise a hand that this is a perfect portfolio for this person. What else you need? Only one girl raised a hand after 10 minutes and she said, are you very much clear that this portfolio requires improvement? Everything is correct here. What else you expect us to do? Raising a question and disagreeing it. Raising a question and its disagreement is not something which should be in a rude manner. It should be justified with proper reasoning. And if a student learns to do that, justifying it with proper logic and reasoning, then only he can raise more relevant questions. And that is happening every day in our exercise. This is happening every day in our class, be it online, be it offline. We are talking about the challenges of online teaching. But yes, this interaction is very much possible. So everywhere we are talking about blending the things to achieve something which is of real worth. I should know where to give more value to. Now, the final learning of my entire interdisciplinary part was that, and when I came and joined as a faculty in Allahabad, students are same. There's not the expectation of students from the teachers is also same. As my role as a mentor, as a guide is also the same. So whether I was in Mumbai, I'm in Allahabad, there is hardly any difference between my work and the people for whom I'm working. There's hardly much difference. So my role stays the same. My beneficiaries, they are the same. Their expectation is the same. So I can apply whatever I have learned there, whatever I have learned here every day in all my classes. And lastly, another learning was that I always thought my subject is commerce, my subject is finance. But ultimately, as a teacher, I learned that my subject are my students. My subject is my students. And because of the students, I will have to make so many changes in my learning pattern so that I give them what they are coming to me for. So I believe in raising questions. That is my last slide. Teaching is not about always answering questions, but raising questions, opening the doors. And this is what I expect now
What's that
student.
reason? I would request all the participants that if you have any questions, you may kindly put it in the chat box so that I can share it with ma'am.
Where can I see the questions?
Ma'am, it will be coming in the chat box, but I think you have explained it so well that
That there should be more questions.
it's like everything is understood. I am requesting again if someone has any question.
I've not explained much, but I've just talked about my experience as a teacher. So in that interdisciplinary part.
Because you spoke very beautifully and you gave a lot of information on the interdisciplinary aspect by sharing about your life experience. So I guess that, yes, we have one question. Do you think unless and until undergraduate classes have training, will they be industry ready?
Training, yes, that's why we are talking about bringing in vocational courses and skill development programs. So if my students are getting ready and I am teaching them business, so I have to inculcate all these skills which are required for handling a business and overcoming the challenges of business. So we are thinking about, can we have an incubation cell, incubation center where a little bit of funding can be given and the students can start taking up few new ideas and have a little bit of startup initiated at the college level. So that is one focus. Secondly, we are also, under new education policy, we are also focusing on the training programs. So if my students go out for a month and do an internship in a company, I think we can develop the skills. Here, I was also like to add as a teacher. So for our skill development, what has UGC created? They have created refresher courses, orientation courses. But I very much believe that if I get the opportunity to go and see the organization and feel what actually an organization does, it is going to be helpful for the students. And that's why we always call people from the industry to have an interaction with the students. So we are taking small steps in that direction, and somewhere the students will be equipped with all the little steps.
Okay, Anvita ma'am, I have one question. Like if I ask you the ratio, like we always have webinars and seminars and workshops for the students. So if I ask you the ratio to have the industry people and people from besides the industry people, what should be the ratio approximately for an undergraduate
Ratio
for bringing the speakers? Like if I bring an academician and I bring a industry person, so for like it's for an informative session for the students. So should the ratio be equal or there should be more participation from the industry people?
Again, the methodology will work here. So first is you have to first give the basic knowledge to the students about the important concepts. So that you are doing your part. Until unless my students don't understand the concept, the logic behind it, interaction will be useless. So slowly and slowly, the more the concepts and knowledge they will have, and you are using the advanced pedagogy which you have learned in this FDP.
Yes.
So you are bringing more things to your students, and then real life examples will come from the industry. They will talk about what is the challenge. See, I being in the college, I was able to speak on my challenges, that how I grew as a faculty, and that is the process still there. Okay, so it is you who will decide that interacting in one lecture in a week is sufficient for my students. But this interaction might go to more numbers when my students are ready in my final year. So you cannot have it at the early stage. Early stage means attraction can be there. Okay, and a person is coming from SEBI, he's a portfolio manager, he's a CFA. That all can be created in a student. I want to reach here. So when I'm bringing a CFA on my platform and they are interacting with the students are like, I want to be there. So first year students have to be there. Now you will tell how you can go be there. Then ultimately bringing the industry in the final year, they are talking about real life experiences. Now students can understand. So it is you who is going to build the methodology, because I told you in the end, your subject is your students. Based on your student, you decide. So there's nothing like proportion I can segregate. And this is what is interdisciplinary teaching about. You decide the things. What is relevant? What is the new area? You create, you decide your objectives, you create the blend. So when I was talking about interdisciplinary, we always say think it like a stew. Now the stew is like you getting the taste of all the flavors, but still you can make out, okay, there is a cucumber in it, there is radish in it, okay. But when I'm talking about multidisciplinary, I am thinking about a salad, and salad is about I can see that yes, there's a cucumber, there's some lettuce, and there's some protein in there, okay. So I feel as a faculty that even our training should happen in that direction, okay. And we should also move out to the industry. Why should we be restricted?
Okay, we have one more question. Is graded internal assessment plausible and beneficial?
Graded,
yeah.
So grading is the final outcome, and the belief on which it is created is that the students, no, means the students were being affected emotionally. So for 1 mark, so you got 1 more marks, I got this. So the grading system is introduced at lower level is fine. But when you're coming at higher level education, even though your final mark sheet is graded, but students still know what marks they have scored. Okay, my experience that I have come from an ungraded system, it worked well for me. For graded system students, they say, "Arey ma'am, 1 marks mil jata, I would have scored an O." That, why are we building that in their mind? Do they ask him, "Yes ma'am, I did understand the things there, I am going to take up a project"? Let us inculcate those habits, not run about marks. And the problem is not with the students, it's the entire structure I'm talking about. So if you have to actually build a system, all the institutions of that system, the people of that system has to work in that way. And that is my belief. So I'm fine with the grading system. I find there's no issue into that.
Okay. Okay, there's one more question. Does this interdisciplinary kind of approach make us jack of all trades and master of none kind, where the students lack mastery?
Okay, see, at which level we are trying to build it? We are building it at UG level. The moment the student is in final year of UG, that is the 4th year, we again expect the student to build an expertise, conduct a research, but the ultimate outcome is a broader level. So interdisciplinary उसने सीखा तो है, he has learned the blending of all the disciplines, but ultimately how he is going to contribute will be a very focused area of his or her research. But those research maybe you're not just using one area, utilizing all the area of the knowledge. So interdisciplinary teaching is brought only at UG level. It's not in the extended level. Extended level में जैसे ही आप PG में जाते हो, you start focusing yourself. But the thing is that focusing is on not only in one discipline. You decide your discipline. I decide it's behavioral finance, it's biochemistry, it's psychological education or educational psychology. These are the new upcoming areas. Okay, so ultimately, if you have to work in an expertise area, you need to work on your expertise also, but that doesn't mean that you have to ignore other disciplines. Okay, like we are coming from commerce in itself is quite multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary.
Yes, I agree with you. So I guess that's the end of the question. And Anvita ma'am, it was great to have you. You gave a great insight. We just did not feel that we are over with the 1.5 hour of time period. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your valuable words. Thank you for your experience sharing. It was, I guess we all are taking a lot from your session today, especially that how we need to involve more and more of interdisciplines in our teaching. Okay.
We will be entering into a more diverse world now. So
yes.
We have to somewhere be flexible enough to adapt beautifully.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So with her words that we need to beautifully adopt the diversity, we are coming to the end of the session, and I would request everyone that kindly rejoin us at 2:15 because our next session will be starting at 2:30. Okay. So thank you,
Thank you.
Anvita ma'am. Thank you, everyone.